I thought I'd go through an elaborate history of Nickelodeon, starting with the very beginning, since everyone seems to prefer the old roots of the Nickelodeon over the ones of today. Started in 1979, Nickelodeon began with a small-time network only broadcasting in Columbus, Ohio. It would air a small number of shows, usually imported or based from Canadian networks, and the shows were usually educational and targeted towards younger children. Small shows were played, such as Curious George, The Magic Roundabout, and Simon in the Land of Chalk Drawings, which later inspired Chalk Zone many years later. Right from the beginning, a show that essentially shaped what Nickelodeon became was You Can't Do That on Television. This was actually a show that would basically be based on kids telling jokes or stories about how life was unfair, and it actually introduced the slime theme that lasted on Nick for years to come. The show went on for 11 years, with its final broadcast in 1990. Once again, this show was shared and honestly based with Canadian viewers, and it wound up running for a whopping 143 episodes. Because of the popularity of this show, and some others, Nickelodeon went national. However, it didn't necessarily have the title Nickelodeon until 1981. For the first 3 years, it didn't even have the classic orange slime logo either. Recognize this? This was the original logo that went from 1981 to 1984. It was eventually replaced by the classic orange slime logo that we still see today. Up until 1991, Nickelodeon was actually broadcasting shows from other countries, such as Canada, the United Kingdom, France, and even Russia. The term Nicktoons was created to describe cartoons that were created by Nickelodeon itself, and not imported or exported out of the country. Nickelodeon started with the show Doug, which many of us remember. This show was essentially a starting point for many other shows of a similar plotline, attempting to educate children. The show basically had a plotline of a kid who moves into town, with a friend who easily accepts him over everyone else, and essentially, he has a love interest right from the start. Soon after, many other Nicktoons were released, such as Rugrats and the Ren and Stimpy Show, which were actually released on the same day as Doug, simply on a later time slot. Eventually, shows leading from Rocko's Modern Life in 1993 went all the way to the 30th Nicktoons series, Back at the Barnyard, released towards the end of 2007. 5 more shows are actually scheduled to be released in 2008. Nick Jr. was started around the same time as the Nicktoons were, but I won't get into that today, since it didn't gain as much support amongst teens until Dora the Explorer seemed to come out. SNICK, short for Saturday Night Nickelodeon, was a 2-hour Saturday night series of shows aimed towards teenagers and older children. It started in 1992, replacing the usual cartoon lineup with several full-motion video type shows, such as Clarissa Explains It All and Are You Afraid of the Dark? While at the same time returning Ren and Stimpy, being more mature, to this new prime time. After about 12 years of introducing new shows, such as All That, Kenan and Kel, The Amanda Show, and more, SNICK was relaunched and renamed to Teen Nick. Teen Nick continues to today. A wide controversy that still continues to this day is the cancellation of older Nickelodeon shows and the release of newer ones that are disliked by the Nickelodeon community. Around 2001, with the 10-year anniversary for many Nick shows, more notably Rugrats with its own celebration, several shows were taken off the air and replaced or just ignored. Those who consider themselves Nick fanatics tend to complain about missing shows such as Hey Arnold, Angry Beavers, Cat Dog, or, more notably, Invader Zim. It turns out that many of the shows on Nickelodeon were removed due to lack of interest at the time in some cases, such as Rugrats because of the fact that they'd been around for 10 years. For others, such as Doug, Hey Arnold, and Angry Beavers, people lost interest at the time for an unknown reason. However, when it came to new shows being released, such as Invader Zim, the shows were actually canceled because of budget issues not supporting it anymore. Another reason Invader Zim was one of the shows cut was due to the content. It's not necessarily a vulgar show, but there were a few disturbing parts every now and then, and the producers felt it was a little too mature for the audience. Because of the extreme dislike of the cancellation of good shows, and the repeats that were played on other networks, such as Ren and Stimpy being played on Spike TV, people lost interest in cartoons on Nickelodeon in general, thus causing a switch over to sitcom-based TV. However, this has turned into a problem as well. Nickelodeon, being well known for its Nicktoons and Slime, has actually stopped expanding on both. New shows are released with unusually mature content, with characters in shows such as the new iCarly show talking about breasts every now and then, causing a little bit of discomfort in a lot of the viewers. Also, many of the shows still playing seem to lack a valid point, and are set up so that if you miss an episode or two, you're essentially lost and can't seem to keep up with the storyline. Even the Nick.com website is barely connected to the shows, advertising games for cartoons that aren't even on very often, because of the fact that viewers in general have lost interest in the channel, and can't seem to remember when a show is going to be played. As a final attempt at returning to Nicktoons, Nickelodeon has released several new 3D animation-based shows and several animal shows over the past few years. Because of the major interest in CatDog and Angry Beavers at the time of its airing, and because of the intensive original interest in Jimmy Neutron, Nick attempted to broadcast new shows such as Cat Scratch, Tack and the Power of Juju, Back at the Barnyard, and the planned Penguins, which is scheduled to air in 2008. Unfortunately, the shows seem to take no reasonable interest, and are becoming hiatus rather quickly. 5 shows are planned to release in 2008. However, 3 of the 5 are expected to have the same primary voice actor, which is causing some upstir and expectation of failure. The only show that people are looking forward to is Random Cartoons, which was the show that started Fairly Odd Parents, Chalk Zone, and more. This seems so far as Nick's last attempt to return to the past interests of Nickelodeon viewers, and it is also expected to have a rough release. So there you have it. I would have done a presentation on Nick at Night, Nick Jr., or others. However, they don't seem to gather as much interest as good old-fashioned Nickelodeon. Though, to be honest, when you think about it, those are probably the only good segments left of the channel. Until next time, see you later.